Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name, do solemnly swear.
Do solemnly swear.
That I will support and defend.
That I will support and defend.
The Constitution of the United States.
The Constitution of the United States.
So now that you've reached out to contacts and folks that you want to engage with and move through the discovery process and learn from, it's time to get ready, right? So the call, they've said yes.
They have
Do you have time to meet?
Yes.
Okay.
What's next?
Crap. Now you have to talk to this person
Yep.
that is a CEO or like, who cares?
Whoever.
Some role that you want to have and you got to talk to them. So now it's time,
The pressure's on.
now it's time to do well.
Yep.
Right? So, I mean, there's a lot to talk about or think about in preparation here for that call. So, Billy, start running us through some of the many things. That
So
are important.
the first thing to consider is when they say yes, think back to the last thing that I said in the message to John, which was what time works best for you. Before they've agreed, but there is a time where you don't know when you're talking to this person, you need to get that scheduled. And there is an art here to make that as easy as humanly possible for them. And the idea is to make it as frictionless as possible for the person who is giving you their time. And there's two really good ways to do this. My number one recommendation is if you do not maintain like a Google Calendar or an Outlook calendar or something, you should do that.
If you don't have a calendar, you need to get.
You should do that. And then the next step is to get some kind of software like Calendly, which is a scheduling software. It links to your Outlook calendar, your Google Calendar. It is free.
It's free.
Yep, it is free. And it's free. The free version allows you to schedule one type of meeting and it only links to one calendar.
Great.
So,
That
which
works
is all
perfect.
you need.
Yeah.
You link Calendly, or there's a bunch of services like it now, to your Google Calendar, and then you can literally send a link to that person that shows all of your free time. And you can expose certain blocks. You can hide certain blocks, whatever you want. And you can just say, hey, John, here's my Calendly link. Pick a time that works best for you, please. And then John does that and it schedules it for you. And you can include a Zoom link or a Google link and you're good. And that makes it super easy for them. The other way is you just say, here's what times work best for you. And then they're going to give you a set of times and then you pick one based off of your availability.
Yeah.
The thing you don't want to do is go back and forth and be like, how about Friday at 5? Oh, that doesn't work for you? Okay. How about Monday at 2? And then you just lose momentum so quickly.
Yeah.
So that's a great way right up front to look really professional, really squared away.
Current.
Yeah.
Very current with the times. And like the one extra part that I would sometimes go extra distance is I would say, is there a time that works best for you? Or what time works best for you? ? Also, here's a link to my calendar if that's easiest. Because then it provides them the prime position. This is the time that works best for me.
Mhm.
Like I type it back because I want to defer to them because they're giving me advice.
Certainly.
And then also, hey, if you don't want to just tell me what works for you, here's a calendar link to make it easy also. So what that does, it creates a situation where I will get an answer. Either going to say, this time works for me and I'm going to clear my schedule, or there's my calendar link and they choose that.
Yeah.
So I open like the 2-prong to tuck those both in.
Yeah. 2-prong assault.
Yeah, double. Pincer movements on that.
Yeah. So once you schedule the time and you know this is going to happen, now it is time to actually prepare for this conversation. And the place that you should start is research on that individual. Primary place to do this?
LinkedIn.
Super easy. Connect with this person if you haven't already. Look at their profile and really become familiar with what have they done, what are their experiences, and within those roles that they've done, some people have very detailed descriptions of what they did in those roles. And you can also look at extracurriculars, where they volunteered, a lot of different information. And what you want to gain from that is commonalities. So you would say, hey, I went to this school too. That's awesome. Build that commonality with them there. And then it also allows you to start framing questions that you might have for them based off their experience. For example, if I'm going to talk to a guy who is in sales, I'm not going to talk to him about product management.
Yeah.
Never done that.
Or a different function.
Exactly. And so if I'm curious about product management, but I'm also curious about the company, I'm probably going to ask the sales guy about the company, and I'll save the product management questions for later, for somebody else.
To go, to where I learned everything in the Marine Corps, to do a full reconnaissance on a person, there is nothing wrong with looking as deep as you want on the internet. All right. And so for folks that are really critical that I want to spend the time on researching, I'll research them on LinkedIn because that's how we connected. I will research them on Google. I would put their name into the Google search bar and then click on the general search tab. I'll go on to images. I'll go on to news articles and find information. Sometimes I'll even take that name and I know where their current city is, and I'll put it into Facebook. I mean, the things that people have on the internet is crazy.
Yeah.
And probably the things that you personally have on the internet, which, by the way, this isn't in our agenda right now, but we're going to talk about after this, shaping your own personal Facebook and your Instagram. Perhaps you put that onto private mode because there is connection and people will see everything, just like we're talking about here in this reconnaissance that you're doing. So it goes both ways, right? They're going to do reconnaissance on you. You do thorough reconnaissance on them. So check it out. Do as much as you want. And look, maybe this is just like the crazy guy in me, but it's gotten to the point where I saw in their background that they had spent the summer in Wilmington, North Carolina, which is right next to Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, where I was stationed. And so by seeing that, I was able to, deep into our conversation, maybe not deep, but 10 minutes into a 30-minute conversation, mention Wilmington and say, oh, I was stationed there intentionally. And then the person said, oh, I vacationed there. I'm like, yeah, right. Not like, obviously I know, but, oh, funny. That's crazy. What a unique commonality we have in our background. So the sense of reconnaissance and research, you can go as deep as you want.
Yep.
And it's out there. So use it for the pros of creating connection, right? This isn't the pros of being a creep. You can think of it as creepy, I guess, but it's about creating commonality and helping to tease those out to then have a effective and influential conversation.
Yeah. The next piece is the final piece for preparation is you must go into these conversations with a prepared set of questions.
Absolutely.
This is
without
highly important. This is a mentor conversation because you're going to be preparing for mentor conversations and you're going to be preparing for one-off conversations. You need to have questions prepared. If you want to look like you are buttoned up, this is one of the best ways to do it.
And you're leading the conversation, right? Because
you are
invited. It'd be like, this is like inviting someone over to dinner. You invite them over to dinner. You have the table set. You have the course for dinner arranged. You have cooked the meal. You have the drinks ready. You know that after this, you want to play the next game. And so even though they're more senior and have all the information, you're leading this call. And many times I've been on the call, you go through the chit chat and you talk about the weather and you're like, all right. And someone will say, well, Wayne, how can I help you? And at that moment, you are prepared and ready. And so Billy, I think you have some great insight here on how to do some of that.
Yeah. And this is just really going to be me reading off these amazing notes that we have. But the first thing when you're building specific questions, the first thing is think about what you want to know from this person. Again, if they're in sales, don't ask them about product. If they're at Amazon and they've been at Amazon their entire life, don't ask them what the culture's like over at Microsoft. Like,
be kind of silly.
It'd be dumb. They're not going to be able to help you. And the point here is for them to help you and for you to efficiently get information from them. Understand when you're what you want to know from them, understand what stage of the funnel you're in. If you're in just the why, really broad sweeps, then you're going to be asking broad questions. Things like, if they're a veteran, how did you get out of the military? Do you recommend any veteran programs for me?
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
What would you have done differently?
What would you have done differently? Fantastic question. Always have that one. And then if you're really narrow, you're in the how section, you know the job, you know the company, you're probably going to be going into a conversation with someone at the company in that role. How do I get this job?
How did not how do I get this?
How do you get this job?
How did you?
How
get
did
this?
you get this
Yeah.
job? Thank you. What do you wish you would have done better to prepare for the interview? What are some resources that you use to prepare for the interview?
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Very specific.
What's critical about these questions, critical, is that you are not asking how you should do things, right? This is not how should I prepare? How do I get a job? You're not asking that because those are not questions that people give a lot of information for. They feel kind of cornered. They're not the ones that make this.
Yeah.
So the question is always about them. Everything is about them and the advice that they have if they were in your shoes. Okay. So as Billy just said, how were you successful? How did you get this role? How did you go through the interview process? By changing the subject from you, which is the information that you're gaining, right? Or are you going to use that for yourself? You change it to them because people love talking about themselves. And so do you. We all love talking about ourselves. It's just an aspect of humanity. And so use that tool to get the information that's interesting and useful to you by talking about them.
The next one is going to be develop open-ended questions. So again, you want to really ask people about their experience. You want them to expound upon these things, but also remember that you have a specific amount of time and you're the one managing this conversation. So do not hesitate to keep the conversation on track. If you ask a too open-ended question and someone just starts rambling, don't be rude, but do intentionally try to find a way to reroute the conversation back to what you're there to do.
And a way to do that is, let's say there's 10 minutes left and we're like off track. I got this critical question that I want to ask. I would say, hey, Billy, I'm really sorry to interrupt. I want to be mindful of our time and respectful of your day. And we only have 10 minutes left.
Yeah.
Do you have a hard stop? And they'll say yes, no. And instantly there's a breakdown for me to go.
Now you can inject
into
the next
phase.
question, which
And
is
it
great.
could even be it's a 30-minute call, you're 15 minutes in. I'm sorry to interrupt. We're halfway through. I just want to make sure I'm being mindful of your time and respectful. Do you have a hard stop? And that's like the card you could pull. Do you have a hard stop at the end because they have a meeting or not? That's after this. That allows you to do that like maneuver of going into something else.
Yeah. And again, the reason why having these questions is so important is when there's that dead space, you're not thinking of the next question, you have the next question.
Yeah, you are prepared.
You're ready to.
This is militaristic, right? And the same way we did a thorough reconnaissance, and for the Marines, infantry folks out there, like we did a full MET-T or map reconnaissance, whatever your service calls it, a full reconnaissance. And you can create a process for this. Did I check their LinkedIn, their news, the different organizations, and how are they commenting on things? What things have they posted recently that I can bring up and say that I saw? Full reconnaissance. You can create an outline for this. Same thing when we get to these questions, you have these prepared. You have your standard, like these are the 6 questions that I ask and have ready to go. And here's like a 7, 8, just in case. This is exactly like getting ready to go on a patrol. You do your PCCs, your PCIs to ensure all your equipment's ready to go. You know what's going to happen. All of the conversation is envisioned before it occurs. And that's how you can have an effective call. It's the preparation and having these questions put together for that conversation. I just get excited about this. I get excited about this.
Just get amped up.
The open-ended questions, when we draw on the experience of others, right, and we do not have them focus on us, there are some great techniques on ensuring this is the case. So again, we're asking for their advice and their experience, which will translate to give you great advice on how to discover your way forward. One of the questions and techniques that I really like, if I just want to say like, what should I do? Right? Like,
horrible question.
How do I get a job at Amazon? Right? Like, I know we keep using this. We're going to just stay with Amazon because it's easy. How do I get a job there? Or who should I talk to? Right? That's what I want to say. The way I make it about them is I say, if you were in my shoes, how would you get a role at Amazon? It's the same question. It's the same thing of how do I get a role at Amazon? But instead of Billy telling Wayne how to do it, I'm asking Billy, if he was me, how would you do it? All right, so if you're in my shoes, how would you X, Y? And that's a great way of taking those questions and spinning them to be about their experience, even when it's exactly what you're looking to do. So try that one out.
And the final pieces that we really want to cover before we move on to the next step is things that we've really already covered, which is the question should draw on the experience of the individuals that you're going to be talking to. They're not focused on you. Really, you shouldn't be talking about yourself very much at all in this conversation.
Enough.
Enough at the beginning to provide context, and then after that, you should be asking questions, and that's really it.
Yeah. Get
But
them
we'll get
talking
that
as
into
much
the
as
next
possible.
section. Then remember, you're focused on them. Their questions focus on them, as Wayne already said. And then finally, have empathy with these questions. How would you want to be asked questions? How would you want to be really mined for information? And just remember, these people are human and they've got lives and they deserve respect too. So when you're going through making these questions, thinking about envisioning how this conversation is gonna go, just always keep that in the back of your head and
Yep.
never really forget that.
Well, and the empathy piece too can extend on, just the questions, but in creating that human connection,
Sure.
right? And so inside of that human connection, you always start off with like, "Hey, how's it going?" Or like, "Good afternoon. How are you?" Right? That's the go-to question at the beginning. How are you? They'll ask you or you'll ask them. And you have two choices here. You can either say, "I'm good," and try to move on, which is what everyone says and they experience all the time too. Or you could say, they'll say, "How are you?" And you say, today's really fantastic because I went on a great run this morning. It's a perfect opportunity for you to mention something about your personal experience that day or recently that then they could say, "Oh, I love exercising too." Or you have the opportunity to have empathy and be more than just a like, "How you doing? Good," sort of thing. And that's a great way at the beginning to start. And then contextually, Billy, I think it's a great point that you made about having empathy in how would you want to be asked questions. Do I want to get on someone and say like, "Hey, can you help me get a job?" Like, I don't want to be asked that because I don't want to be asked questions and put in positions that I can't give great responses to. But what a person can always give a great response to is their experience. And so use empathy to draw upon that and to have great conversations and discover, what you're interested in inside of your discovery funnel.